What happens when the sacred space of childhood, a time meant for, unburdened discovery and growth, is instead treated as raw material?
Hmm.
What happens when innocence isn't protected but packaged, polished, curated?
Right.
When the very essence of a child becomes a product, not a phase of life to be cherished, but a commodity to be sold.
It's a chilling thought.
We're diving deep today into a world that, well, beneath all the glitter and the glossy veneer, it exposes a truly unsettling truth.
It really does.
Our mission is clear. We're pulling back the curtain on the multi-billion-dollar machine that trades genuine childhood for the illusion of beauty, fame, and, let's face it, fleeting validation.
That fleeting aspect is so key.
Our sources, a collection of investigative articles, academic research, personal accounts, they paint a stark picture of industries where smiles are currency and crowns are validation.
Absolutely.
We're talking specifically about child beauty pageants and child models. These are, I think, two undeniable forces that have shaped and continue to shape this profound cultural phenomenon.
No question, they're deeply intertwined.
And this isn't just innocent play, or some benign hobby. This is an industry, a massive one.
It absolutely is, and the profit motive is central.
And the real cost, as we'll discover, is far higher and far more enduring than any trophy or photoshoot fee.
That's a critical point to underscore, really. The very notion that a child's value can be tied so intrinsically to their appearance, to their ability to perform beauty for an audience, it's deeply ingrained in these systems.
Perform beauty. That's a powerful way to put it.
When we examine the mechanisms, we see these structured environments meticulously designed to place children on display. The focus isn't on their intrinsic worth, their developing personality, or, their uncurated joy.
No, it's all external.
Exactly. It's on external judgment and ultimately profit.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental redefinition of what childhood even means. And it has profound implications for how these children, and maybe society as a whole, come to view themselves.
And to truly grasp the scale and the subtlety of this commodification, we have to journey back to its beginnings. Because this idea of being born to be beautiful, it isn't some new concept born of our digital age, is it?
Not at all. It has roots that stretch back much further than many might imagine, kind of intertwining with broader societal shifts.
So where do we start? The mid-20th century.
Indeed, to understand the present, we absolutely have to look to the past. The historical roots are critical for understanding how these practices evolved into, well, their current, pervasive forms. Child beauty pageants in their earliest recognizable iterations first began to emerge around the mid-20th century.
Okay.
But what's crucial here is that they didn't appear in a vacuum, right? They effectively piggybacked on the burgeoning cultural acceptance of adult beauty pageants. Those were already a mainstream fixture.
Right. Miss America and things like that were already big.
Exactly. Society at that time had already grown accustomed to the idea of women's worth being tied to their physical appearance, showcased on a stage, judged and scored. This framework of evaluation, this public performance of beauty, it just sort of trickled down.
Trickled down to younger contestants, almost like a natural extension.
Almost, yeah. An extension of the established adult events.
And it wasn't long before this concept of monetized youth extended beyond just the pageant stage, right? Because concurrently, we saw the rise of junior modeling campaigns.
That's right. Suddenly, the world of luxury brands and high fashion wasn't solely for adults. Brands, recognizing an untapped market and, frankly, a powerful new advertising tool, began to feature children prominently.
So this taught parents a clear, if maybe unsettling, lesson.
Definitely. A lesson about the potential for money and status to be found in their child's aesthetic. It forged an immediate, tangible link. A child's appearance could translate directly into rewards, prestige, maybe even financial gain.
It's fascinating how quickly something that maybe started innocently enough evolved.
It is. A significant observation is just how rapidly that happened. These early competitions often began as really local, community-focused events, think small-town fairs, country festivals, gatherings where children were, as our sources describe, kind of shown off alongside, well...
livestock or homemade pies.
Exactly. Like livestock or homemade pies. Initially, it was probably quite charming, a lighthearted display of local pride. But by the 1960s and 70s, this casual exhibition began to transform.
Into something bigger.
Much bigger, far more organized, and undeniably driven by commercial interests. The shift was subtle at first, but relentless.
Far larger and far more lucrative, you said. It wasn't just about local pride anymore. The focus shifted towards, what, prestige.
Prestige, exactly, an elusive concept of prestige. And as the industry began to grow and professionalize, so too did this intricate financial ecosystem that developed around it. We saw the emergence of standardized entry fees for competitions, which then, escalated.
And that's when the side industries popped up.
Precisely. Simultaneously, specialized ancillary industries began to appear. Businesses dedicated to crafting elaborate, often custom costumes, professional makeup artists catering specifically to children, companies producing custom trophies that became symbols of escalating ambition.
So what started as a local pastime
Very rapidly transformed into a multi-million-dollar circuit, drawing in families with the promise of recognition and reward.
And at the same time, advertising was changing too.
In parallel, yes, we observed a profound marketing shift within the advertising industry. Children were no longer simply being used to sell toys or, kids stuff. They increasingly became marketing tools deployed to sell entire lifestyles.
Lifestyles? Like what?
Well, consider the evolution of baby clothes. They transitioned from being purely practical garments to being branded as miniature couture. These items were styled, photographed, presented with the same level of sophistication that aspirational appeal typically reserved for adult high fashion.
Miniature couture. Wow.
Yeah. This subtle but powerful shift further embedded the idea of a child as a visual product, a vehicle for luxury and status, rather than just, a developing individual.
So if we trace these threads, we see these two powerful forces, pageants and modeling, starting to converge, really reinforcing each other.
Absolutely. Both were built upon that foundational premise that beauty could be measured, displayed, and sold, even in its most nascent forms.
From local fairs to glossy magazines, childhood itself was becoming a spectacle.
It was. And what strikes me as particularly unsettling is that consistent, undeniable message conveyed to these children from such a young age. Your primary value, your worth, is intrinsically tied to how you look, how you present yourself.
That's a heavy burden for a child.
It is. And this isn't merely about surface-level aesthetics. It goes far deeper. This relentless pursuit of beauty, this demand for performance, it becomes a core defining element of their developing identity.
So it stops being a choice.
It ceases to be a playful choice, and instead transforms into what can feel like a lifelong performance, a role they feel they must continuously inhabit. This shapes not only how they perceive their own worth, but also how they believe the world will value them. It's a profound early conditioning.
That's incredibly difficult to shake off later in life.
Exactly.
And when we talk about the darker truths of this commodification, when we consider the shadows cast by an industry profiting from youthful appearance, we simply cannot avoid talking about JonBenét Ramsay. Her story. It's not just a tragic anecdote, is it?
No, it's etched into our collective cultural memory, a symbol of innocence lost. And it cast an undeniable, chilling, and permanent light on this entire industry.
A star on the circuit, wasn't she? At just 6.
Truly, few stories cast a longer, more somber shadow. JonBenét Ramsay was a precocious 6-year-old, already a recognized star on the circuit, meticulously trained to parade in sequins, heavy makeup, and crowns.
Performing routines far beyond her age.
Way beyond. To those within the pageant world, she represented a kind of prodigy. But to the wider public, especially after her death, she became something far more haunting. A stark symbol of lost innocence, dressed really incongruously in adult glamour.
And then, 1996. Her death changed everything, not just for her family, but for the national conversation.
Overnight, yeah. Her pageant photos, those images of a little girl in full makeup, elaborate costumes, they were replayed again and again. Every news channel, every magazine cover.
That media saturation.
It placed her at the center of a cultural reckoning, compelling the nation to look beyond the immediate tragedy and really scrutinize the very industry that had made her a public figure.
And the questions started pouring in. Hard questions.
The profound observation here is the harsh, unforgiving spotlight this tragedy cast. Suddenly, people weren't just passively observing pageants. They were asking deeply troubling, often uncomfortable questions. Why were children being dressed to mimic adults? What was the purpose of parading them under stage lights, competing for applause based on subjective beauty standards?
Had society blurred the line too far?
That was the question, yeah. Had society, as our sources suggest, blurred the line between childhood and performance too far, to a dangerous and unhealthy degree? These weren't abstract questions anymore. They were fueled by the stark reality of her story, forcing a national reevaluation.
And this is where the narrative takes that profoundly paradoxical, almost unsettling turn. You'd think such a tragedy, the outrage, the scrutiny, it might end the practice, right? Or at least curb it?
Logically, yes. You would assume that.
But that's not what happened at all.
Not even close. Instead, the tragedy had this unforeseen effect. It didn't burn down the industry. It actually made pageants more visible.
More visible. How?
In the years that followed, far from fading, reality television shows and competitive contests focused on child pageantry grew exponentially in popularity. JonBenét, in a cruel twist, became a symbol, a stark, persistent reminder of the unsettling, sometimes tragic, price of turning childhood into entertainment.
So the spotlight didn't extinguish the flame.
It illuminated it. For a wider, more curious audience, the controversy itself became a spectacle.
That heightened visibility, sparked by tragedy, amplified by media, it inadvertently set the stage for another major shift. The relentless rise of reality TV.
Absolutely. And this is where the spectacle, the commodification, the blurring of lines truly intensified, transforming an already questionable industry into, well, mainstream entertainment.
Shows like Toddlers and Tiaras.
Exactly. By the early 2000s, shows like Toddlers and Tiaras weren't merely documenting pageants. They fundamentally transformed them into a television event, a compelling form of public spectacle.
Pulling back the curtain.
For the first time, yeah. Millions of viewers gained an unvarnished, often shocking behind-the-scenes look at the sequins, tantrums, and high-stakes competition that defined this world. And audiences responded with this incredibly complex, often conflicted mix of fascination, discomfort, and maybe a voyeuristic impulse that proved irresistible.
That audience reaction was fascinating. Some laughed at the routines, right? Found it humorous.
Some did, yes. They laughed at the over-the-top routines, finding humor in the drama and personalities. But a significant number were genuinely disturbed by the heavy makeup, the rehearsed smiles, the sight of young children mimicking adult behavior in ways that felt deeply off.
Inappropriate, yeah. There was a palpable discomfort, widespread unease, yet people kept watching.
Which raises that critical question. Why did that discomfort, that unease, not deter viewers? Why did it, in fact, seem to attract more?
It's the controversy itself.
I think so. The profound insight here is that the more controversy these shows generated, the more popular they became. This isn't just accidental visibility. It taps into a primal human fascination with the extraordinary, even the uncomfortable. Reality TV capitalizes on a form of voyeurism.
A train wreck appeal.
Exactly, where the perceived authenticity of struggles and triumphs becomes its own compelling drama. Viewers feel both disturbed and deeply invested. The outrage itself became a powerful driver of viewership, inadvertently normalizing and even glamorizing the very practices it exposed.
So reality TV wasn't just reporting on the industry, it was actively amplifying it, shaping it.
Absolutely. It led directly to flashier costumes, more extreme routines, ever higher expectations placed upon these young children. It served to further blur that already hazy line between childhood and performance.
Private struggles become public drama.
Meticulously edited and played out for maximum ratings, it was a self-perpetuating cycle of exposure and escalation, with the children often caught in the most vulnerable position.
And that relentless amplification, that constant need for spectacle, it leads us right to the money, doesn't it? The money behind the makeup.
It does, because what we're discussing here is far more than a casual pastime. It is a full-blown, incredibly sophisticated financial ecosystem designed to generate substantial profit.
It's striking how often we hear it framed as just a fun hobby, maybe a way for kids to gain confidence. But the sources are clear. Challenge that perception.
Fundamentally, this is no mere hobby. It is a full-blown economy, a complex, self-sustaining financial engine. And the costs associated with participation are, by almost any standard, absolutely exorbitant.
How exorbitant are we talking?
Well, if we delved into the financial structures, it's meticulously designed to extract significant, continuous investment from families. We're talking hundreds of dollars just for entry fees per competition, often just for one category.
That's just the start.
Merely the visible tip of a much larger iceberg. Layered on top are substantial expenses for travel to competitions, hotel rooms, increasingly elaborate costumes, often custom designed, incredibly expensive professional coaching for routines and interviews, spray tans, fake teeth, even wigs.
Fake teeth? For children?
Yes, slippers to create that perfect smile. When you aggregate these costs, parents are routinely spending thousands each year for a single child's participation. It transforms a perceived hobby into a major household expenditure.
What drives parents to spend that kind of money? It must be the promise of something big.
It's largely fueled by that powerful promise, the allure of opportunity. This is the core narrative expertly sold to parents.
The idea that a crown leads to.
Exactly. That a pageant crown, a successful modeling gig, a viral moment, can directly lead to modeling contracts, television appearances, even scholarships for higher education. It's shrewdly pitched as an investment.
An investment in their child's future.
Nurturing a belief that beauty can pay dividends in the long run, offering a tangible path to future success and upward mobility, it really preys on parental hopes and dreams.
But the reality is usually quite different, isn't it?
For most, yes. The reality is far less glamorous, often quite sobering. A crucial insight here is identifying who truly profits. Our sources are unambiguous. Most of the time, the only people making money are the pageant directors, the costume designers, and the coaches.
So the money flows inwards to the industry itself.
Predominantly, yes. It creates this remarkably self-sustaining ecosystem where the money flows inward, rather than outward to the vast majority of participating children or their families, who often receive little beyond maybe a transient sense of accomplishment or an expensive souvenir.
And the industry thrives on parents believing that spending more increases their child's chances.
That's the manipulation, starkly apparent. This entire ecosystem thrives on parents believing that bigger spending equals better chances. It's an escalating arms race of consumption.
Like needing the most expensive dress.
We see examples of a custom dress worth more than a mortgage payment being commissioned for a child, or parents hiring a dedicated glam squad to transform a toddler into a stage-ready, highly polished performer. It's an illusion of control, the hope that if you just spend enough, you can buy success.
Which just enriches the industry further.
At every turn. So when we truly measure the multifaceted cost for the children themselves, it's immense, often unbearable pressure. For the parents, it frequently manifests as significant, sometimes crippling, financial strain.
But for the industry?
The profits just keep growing, because as long as beauty can be sold as a dream of fame, fortune, or even just acceptance, there will always be someone willing to pay that escalating, often unsustainable price.
Which brings us to the children themselves, the central figures. Beyond the financial costs, there's this profound, insidious psychological fallout. Invisible scars.
This raises a profoundly important question. What does it truly do to the developing psyche of a child to grow up in an environment where appearance is everything, where their worth is constantly evaluated against an external, arbitrary standard?
Where a higher score just means you looked better.
Precisely. A higher score doesn't mean you played harder or learned more. It simply means you looked better. This message, delivered early, constantly, unambiguously, it fundamentally shapes their nascent perception of self-worth and their place in the world.
That constant judgment, it must plant seeds of self-doubt.
Absolutely. At a crucial developmental stage, children learn to present forced smiles, develop what our sources term conditional confidence.
Meaning their confidence depends entirely on external validation.
Exactly. On their ability to meet perceived beauty standards. The line between who they truly are and how they look begins to blur almost indistinguishably. Their very identity becomes inextricably intertwined with their public performance of beauty.
And the long-term impact. Are there studies on this?
There are. Studies paint a concerning picture. Children who participate extensively in these appearance-focused competitions are more likely to struggle with self-esteem, anxiety, and eating disorders later in life.
So the pressure doesn't just go away when they leave the stage?
Not at all. The intense pressure to maintain an image of perfection lingers long after the stage lights go out, often manifesting as a persistent internal struggle. This isn't a transient phase. It can be a deeply embedded psychological burden impacting their relationships, their careers, their overall well-being as adults.
And even for the winners.
Yeah.
The lesson is harsh.
Even for the victors, yeah. The underlying message is that beauty is temporary and always up for replacement. A child crowned one week might find themselves easily forgotten or overlooked the next. There's a rapid, often cruel turnover of attention.
But for the vast majority who don't win,
the message is even darker. That they simply weren't good enough, regardless of their age, their effort, their inherent worth. This can be a deeply wounding message to internalize at such a tender, formative age.
So when we measure the true cost, it's not about the trophies.
Not at all. When childhood is essentially a performance, every smile, every pose carries significant psychological weight. And the true cost is Rarely measured in trophies or accolades, it's measured in the quiet, lasting toll it takes on the delicate, developing mind. These are the invisible scars that endure.
And that psychological toll often plays out in the parent-child relationship, doesn't it? Which leads to that critical, often uncomfortable question. When mothers live through daughters, whose dream is it really?
This is a deeply complex, emotionally charged dynamic, central to understanding this industry. A key insight is parental projection, where a parent is effectively chasing the spotlight through their child.
Reliving their own missed dream.
Often, yes. While parental encouragement is natural, sometimes this drive stems from a parent reliving a dream they never achieved themselves, transferring their own unfulfilled ambitions onto their child, consciously or unconsciously. It's a powerful transfer of aspiration.
And those pageant moms or modeling parents, they become fixtures, almost like managers.
Absolutely fixtures in this world. They manage grueling schedules, choose costumes, oversee endless rehearsals with an intensity that rivals professional agents. It's an all-consuming role that, while framed as supportive, can easily overshadow the child's own interests, needs, authentic experience.
The line between manager and parent gets incredibly blurred.
Totally blurred. And this demanding, high-stakes environment frequently creates a scenario where a child's wants and needs can be utterly drowned out by the sheer force of the parent's ambition.
The focus shifts away from the child's well-being
to the parent's pursuit of an outcome, a win, a booking, a spotlight moment. The child's authentic voice gets lost in the clamor of adult aspirations.
We saw this turn into a spectacle on reality TV, didn't we? Parents arguing, kids crying.
We did. Shows frequently depicted parents arguing backstage, coaching their children through tears, all for mass entertainment. But even away from the cameras, the pattern remains. A child's life, managed, directed, curated for the elusive hope of external recognition, not intrinsic fulfillment. It's a constant performance.
So it brings us back to that core question.
The fundamental one. Whose dream is really being chased? Is it genuinely the child's, or is it the parent's? And if it's the latter, the ultimate price is often nothing less than the child's developing sense of self, their authentic identity, which can become irrevocably fragmented or distorted.
To really understand the lingering impact, we need to look at the celebrity pasts of people who navigated this world. Those who found fame, but often carry quiet costs.
Right. Let's consider Selena Gomez and Demi Lovato. Both huge artists now, but they actually began their journey into the spotlight through child beauty pageants in Texas.
Before Disney, before the music.
Long before. They were on small stages, sequins, rehearsed smiles. A key insight here is they were learning from a very tender age that applause and validation could be earned not just for talent, but specifically for a curated appearance and a polished performance. That early conditioning is crucial.
And their paths diverged, but the imprint remained.
Undeniable. For Selena, pageants were a clear stepping stone into acting. For Demi, the motivation was even more direct. Pageants were a way to raise money, sometimes selling homemade CDs just to keep competing. Both became superstars, but those formative experiences left an undeniable imprint.
And they've both spoken about the effects.
Yes, that's the crucial, often overlooked aspect. In interviews, both have spoken candidly about the lasting effects. Demi openly discussed how it contributed to struggles with self-image, body dysmorphia, pressure to look perfect. Selena reflected on the challenges of being judged in the public eye from such a young age.
It highlights that quiet truth.
Exactly, the quiet truth of pageants. Not every child faces public scandal, but the cost is often invisible and internal pressure, a lifelong battle with self-worth that begins with a crown and a scorecard and can persist for decades.
Then there's Beyoncé, another massive star with pageant roots.
She also had her start on the pageant stage as a child, competing across Houston. Her mother, Tina Knowles, has shared memories of her intense focus even then.
And undoubtedly that gave her experience, discipline.
Undeniably. It provided invaluable experience performing under pressure, honed her discipline and drive, qualities she celebrated for. However, even someone with Beyoncé's extraordinary talent and willpower was exposed to the same inherent contradictions.
The demand to look perfect, the judgment.
Exactly. The demand to look perfect, the judgment of strangers, the need to prove herself in a world rewarding beauty perhaps more than ability. She navigated it with remarkable resilience.
Which raises that critical question.
If it takes the extraordinary willpower and self-possession of someone like Beyoncé to emerge empowered, what happens to the countless others who enter the same system but never make it out with their confidence, their sense of self, or their mental well-being intact?
It starkly illustrates how few navigated unscathed.
Very few. Then there's Honey Boo Boo, Alana Thompson. Her innocence almost entirely turned into a punchline.
She was a sensation on Toddlers and Tiaras.
Viral, yeah. Due to her outspoken personality, memorable catchphrases, uninhibited antics, instantly recognizable.
But the transformation was rapid. From contestant to...
One national punchline. With her own spin-off, Here Comes Honey Boo Boo. Here, she was celebrated, mocked, and commodified all at once, thrust into this relentless whirlwind of exposure.
Leaving people asking, entertainment or exploitation?
That fundamental, uncomfortable question, was this entertainment or was it exploitation? Was her visibility genuine representation, or was it ridicule disguised as humor? Her story, more than others, isn't just about crowns. It's about how quickly a child can be turned into a brand.
How innocence can be edited into comedy.
And how the critical line between representation and outright exploitation can vanish the moment the cameras start rolling and the ratings climb. A stark, modern reminder of child commodification in the digital age.
Now, it's important to acknowledge not all kids enter the spotlight via pageants.
Yeah.
Many are recruited directly into modeling, the child model pipeline.
Right. A different path, but promising glamour instead of trophies, yet carrying strikingly similar pressures and costs.
The entry point differs, but the commodification is consistent.
Remarkably consistent. A significant observation is the astonishingly young age many high-profile models started. Gigi Hadid, 2 years old for Baby Guess, Kaya Gerber, 10 for Versace Kids.
And Brooke Shields, modeling as an infant.
As an infant, yes. Magazine covers long before her teens, a global icon before she could truly understand the implications.
And often, nothing overtly scandalous happened immediately. The impact was quieter.
Exactly. For many, nothing overtly scandalous happened in the moment. No immediate headlines. Instead, the impact was quieter and far longer lasting, subtly shaping their self-perception, body image, relationship with the world.
And their testimonies later reveal that toll.
They really illuminate it. Cara Delevingne, open about depression and burnout from growing up in the industry. Kaya Gerber admitted struggles with anxiety, trying to live up to an image crafted before she could define herself. Brooke Shields spoke movingly about the lasting weight of being sexualized long before she understood what it meant.
A permanent mark.
Yeah. So the core truth emerges. You don't need a crown or a pageant stage to be commodified. In fashion, children become miniature versions of adult-styled pose sold to audiences who rarely pause to ask what this means for the actual child inside the picture.
Performing an identity not their own.
A constant, demanding performance.
And this idea of miniature adults brings us to luxury's mini adults. Childhood as a designer accessory.
Precisely. The luxury fashion industry excels at selling aspiration, but a shift occurred when they aimed that aspiration directly at children. Major brands like Baby Dior, Young Versace launched entire children's lines.
Pushing the idea that even the youngest should be draped in high fashion.
That their earliest years could be, perhaps should be, branded, creating a customer for life, starting from the cradle.
And the imagery could be unsettling.
Often, yeah. Especially viewed critically. Editorials in Vogue, Harper's Bazaar featuring children styled not as kids but as miniature adults, a 10-year-old in couture heels, a 12-year-old posed with the same allure as a grown model.
Brands claim creative expression.
But the effect was often childhood filtered through adult fantasy and desire, not celebrating authentic youth.
It's a shrewd marketing strategy, though. Make a child crave glamour early.
And you've secured a customer for life. For parents, it felt like an opportunity, seeing their child linked to prestige labels. But for the children, the subtle cost is profound. They learn early that attention comes when they look older, project an image that isn't genuinely their own.
Which creates that uneasy paradox.
Exactly. Luxury houses claiming to celebrate youth while simultaneously styling it out of existence. Childhood isn't preserved, it's rewritten, packaged, sold as just another designer accessory. An image for consumption, not authentic development.
Now those luxury trends, the mini adult looks, they don't stay exclusive for long, do they? The trickle-down effect.
That's critical for the broader commercial landscape. What begins with Dior or Versace quickly trickles down into shopping malls, discount retailers, ubiquitous fast fashion brands.
So padded dresses, crop tops, heels for kids.
Suddenly available and aggressively marketed directly to children via Zara, H&M, a Shine, the mini adult aesthetic becomes mainstream.
Parents might see it as harmless indulgence, letting kids follow trends.
And maybe genuinely believe that. But the garments carry an embedded message. Childhood isn't quite enough. Looking older, polished, ready for the spotlight, that's what sells, gets approval. It subtly reinforces that their natural state isn't sufficient.
And social media just pours gasoline on that fire.
Absolutely amplifies and accelerates it. Children posting themselves online in these styles, mimicking adult poses, chasing likes and comments that echo the same superficial approval from pageants or casting calls.
The validation is digital, instant, but the pressure is the same, maybe worse.
Identical, if not intensified, by the global reach. So whether it's pageant sequins, high fashion editorials, or fast fashion, the outcome is chillingly consistent.
Innocence is redesigned, marketed, and consumed one outfit at a time.
A pervasive, almost inescapable cultural shift impacting millions.
And this isn't just an American issue. It exists within global contradictions and fuels ongoing legal battlegrounds worldwide.
That's absolutely right. The variation in cultural acceptance is striking. In Brazil, the Philippines, pageants aren't niche. They're celebrated traditions, televised huge audiences.
Seen as pathways to opportunity, social mobility.
Genuinely, yes. For many families, a potential escape from poverty, a means to achieve recognition.
But this celebration often clashes with local values, right? Conservative communities hosting pageants with costumes deemed inappropriate otherwise?
Exactly. Stark, often unacknowledged clashes. Pageants thrive even in deeply religious or conservative communities where girls wear costumes or perform routines that outside that context would be forbidden. That contradiction, that cognitive dissonance is rarely acknowledged because the spectacle is so ingrained.
But elsewhere, the backlash is sharper, leading to legal action.
Much sharper. France in 2013 took a decisive step, banned beauty pageants for children under 16, citing sexualization of minors. That set a precedent. Other European nations debated or implemented similar restrictions, a clear legislative pushback.
Which contrasts sharply with the U.S.
Very sharply. In the United States, attempts at similar regulation often stall, blocked by powerful arguments about parental rights and personal freedom, framing interference as infringing on family autonomy. A deep cultural and legal resistance to oversight here.
So the global divide is stark. One part sees tradition, another danger.
Fundamentally, one part views these contests as benign tradition, maybe opportunity. Another sees them as inherently dangerous, exploitative, and the children are caught in the middle, celebrated in one country, restricted in another, yet undeniably commodify all the same.
Raising questions about universal child protection standards.
Whose values prevail? Whose interests are served? And these pageants and the law remain at odds. Supporters argue harmless fun, confidence building. Critics see premature sexualization, exploitation of ambition, normalizing beauty as performance.
And the legal responses vary hugely.
France's ban addressed sexualization directly. Other European nations use stricter ad or child labor laws. But in the U.S., pageants remain largely unregulated federally. Organizers are private businesses. Legislative efforts often fail against parental rights arguments.
So the industry thrives in a legal gray space.
Especially in the U.S., yeah. Thrives in legal gray space with minimal oversight and, maybe most concerningly, rare accountability. Child welfare is often left to adults profiting from their participation, an inherent conflict of interest.
Leaving those fundamental moral questions unanswered.
Exactly. At what point does performance become exploitation? And who should decide? Parents? Government? The children themselves, who rarely get a meaningful say. Questions demanding deeper consideration.
This lack of consistent oversight, the public nature, it opens the door to disturbing possibilities, predators and legal battles, unseen dangers.
A dark, uncomfortable truth the industry often glosses over. These contests draw attention that no child should ever encounter. When children are styled like miniature adults, emphasizing physical attributes, the audience can include individuals with intentions far darker than applause.
A profound, inherent vulnerability.
A systemic risk stemming directly from commercializing a child's image. And the culture surrounding these events has, disturbingly, been linked to numerous lawsuits and scandals exposing how little oversight truly exists for child safety.
These aren't isolated incidents.
No, real-world, documented consequences. Accusations against organizers for negligence, legal challenges to contracts citing exploitation, families battling in court over broken promises.
And the children are caught in the middle of adult legal battles.
Left at the center of complex legal battles fought entirely by adults, beyond their control, enduring further trauma. And the fashion world isn't immune. Controversial photo shoots featuring child models spark outrage over blurred lines, sexualization.
The industry defaults to artistic freedom.
Often, yes, leaving the public grappling with the cost to the children. So these cases reveal not just misconduct, but a systemic design flaw, a system created without sufficient safeguards.
Celebrated one moment, vulnerable the next.
The fundamental risk remains when childhood is commercialized, protection is too often an afterthought, not foundational.
Beyond dangers, there's the pervasive, insidious, toxic competition infiltrating childhood, turning play into intense rivalry.
A critical observation. Marketed as celebrations of beauty or character building, the reality behind the glitter is often intense rivalry. Children explicitly placed in direct competition, judged on subjective qualities they can't control, setting them up for comparison and perceived failure.
Creating a toxic culture of comparison.
Deeply ingrained. Backstage, the tension is unmistakable, palpable, parents whispering, costumes scrutinized, contestants sizing each other up. It rarely fosters camaraderie. It breeds suspicion, competitiveness.
And this doesn't end with the trophy. It spills over.
Doesn't end with a trophy. The learned behaviors impact friendship, school, even family life. Children taught to see peers as rivals, obstacles. It can warp social development.
And the pressure isn't just external, it's internal too.
Powerfully so. Children quickly learn to compare themselves to past versions, desperate to outdo their last performance. Perfection becomes the baseline. Anything less feels like failure. A relentless internal burden.
The irony is profound.
It really is. What's consistently framed as confidence building often leaves deep, enduring scars of insecurity. Instead of fostering resilience or cooperation, the industry teaches comparison, rivalry, self-doubt, undermining the very qualities claimed.
So in a world where only one wins,
the overwhelming majority are left with that quiet, lingering, painful question. Why weren't they good enough? A brutal verdict at a tender age, shaping self-perception for years.
And the influence of this culture, this commodification, it doesn't just disappear. It has shaped modern beauty culture profoundly, leaving a powerful digital echo.
That's a crucial point about its enduring legacy. The crowns gather dust, campaigns fade, but the underlying influence never truly disappears. Today, its legacy is everywhere, subtly hidden in plain sight across social media, an almost invisible yet foundational part of our digital landscape.
Like filters on TikTok and Instagram.
Exactly. Ubiquitous filters instantly. Smooth skin, sharpened jawlines, brightened eyes create an illusion of flawlessness. These tools subtly teach children to present perfected, idealized versions of who they think they should be.
The same lessons from the pageant stage, just digitized.
Precisely. That beauty can be scored, perfected, meticulously performed, now playing out on millions of screens every day, instantly accessible, endlessly reinforced. And how does this manifest for the next generation?
Influencer kids.
We're seeing influencer kids becoming full-fledged brands before they hit their teenage years, personas curated by parents chasing sponsorship deals and online fame, childhood lives for content creation, commercial gain, private lives become public spectacles for profit.
And the echoes of performance culture are strong. Fashion halls, choreographed dances.
Meticulously staged photo shoots, mimicking professional campaigns, all echo the same performance culture from pageants and modeling decades ago. Same playbook, different, vaster stage.
So what was confined to ballrooms and magazines
has undeniably become part of everyday childhood. The pageant aesthetic, polished, rehearsed, flawless, seeking external validation is the implicit baseline of modern beauty culture. And for a generation growing up online, the audience isn't judges anymore.
It's the entire world.
Literally, the entire interconnected world,
Right.
Watching, judging, influencing every move.
Every crown eventually gathers dust. Every photo shoot fades into the archives. The applause dies down. The cameras move on. The industry turns its attention to the next child ready to perform.
The next face to mold, the next innocence to package.
What remains long after those fleeting moments are the children, many now adults, carrying the heavy weight of what was asked of them far too young.
For some, a lifelong struggle with confidence, body image, distorted identity. For others, chronic pressure, pervasive anxiety, the haunting memory of being treated like a product, a commodity, not a person.
The true story isn't about the winners or the campaigns.
No. It is, at its core, the story of a culture that, somewhere along the way, collectively decided childhood itself could be packaged, relentlessly marketed, profitably sold, and rarely, if ever, paused to fully consider the profound, often devastating long-term consequences.
The true cost isn't measured in entry fees or costumes.
It's measured in childhoods cut tragically short, in innocence commodified for profit, and in the long, pervasive shadows cast by an industry that, from an alarmingly young age, tells children their inherent worth begins and ends with how they look, how they perform beauty.
And once that lesson is learned,
Deeply ingrained within their developing psyches, it is almost impossible to truly unlearn.
So, as we conclude this deep dive, we're left with a deeply unsettling question, one for our reflection, our collective conscience. What kind of future are we truly building when the fundamental value of a child is first measured, not by their inherent potential, their unique spirit, or their boundless joy, but by the cold, calculating metrics of the market?
Rather than simply cherished for their own inherent uncommodified worth.
It's a question that echoes far beyond the stage lights into every home, every screen. From the very first pageants right up to today's influencer kids, this message that beauty is something you can score, something you perfect and perform, it's sunk in deep. And the real cost of winning that crown, maybe it isn't the entry fees or the sparkly dresses after all. Maybe it's, the childhoods that get cut short, the lasting shadows from an industry that keeps telling kids their worth starts and maybe ends with how they look.
A heavy price.
It really is. Which leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? What's our responsibility as a society in challenging this culture? This culture that seems to so easily blur the line between just, a child's natural joy and a performance designed for profit. Thank you for watching. Catch you next week for another deep dive into humanity.